That's the great thing about Hong Kong, really, is you can walk outside any time of day and you can learn from other people. There's just so much going on. I was brought up in Australia in a small town about 200 kilometres from Melbourne. Did my law degree, LLB, at the University of Melbourne, and did my doctorate in Canada, Osgoode Hall Law School in Toronto in 1985. And I've been in Hong Kong, based in Hong Kong, not continuously, but I first came to work here in late 1991, so it's in November this year it will be 30 years. Like many others, I came initially on a short contract, a 2-year contract, and the opportunity that arose was in the new law school at the City University of Hong Kong. City Polytechnic, actually, it was in those days. So the British, after Tiananmen Square, there was a lot of nervousness in Hong Kong, and the British initiated a number of strategies to try and calm people down. One of them was to introduce the Bill of Rights Ordinance. The other one was to start building the new airport at Jack Lap Kok. Another one was to offer passports to about 50,000 Hong Kong civil servants, British passports. And the one that was most important from my point of view is the British decided to double the size of tertiary education in Hong Kong before the handover. And as part of that process, they agreed that a second law school should be started. So there were new opportunities to come to Hong Kong. My first visit to Hong Kong was in 1974. That gives you an indication of how old I am. And I was going to London for my first trip to England, and had an overnight stopover, which is burned in my mind. I can remember it vividly, where I stayed, what I did, the camera I bought, and so on. And in those days, through a contact, there was a guide met me. My one and only visit to the Tiger Balm Gardens, because they were still going in those days, and that was a prime tourist attraction. I remember coming back from Tsim Sha Tsui back to Kowloon Tong, where I was living near City Polytechnic, as it was then, and I'm waiting at the bus stop. A lot of bus stories. Anyhow, this is another Kowloon motor bus, Yitgal, hot dog bus, no aircon or anything of that. Bus was sitting there and waiting, and there was a woman, an older woman inside, and because it was summertime and it was so hot, many people had been drinking Coca-Cola and various, green tea and soft drinks. And she gathered up all of the tins inside the bus, and she put them into a Park and Shop bag, and she got off the bus and she tied the bag together, and then she dropped it and kicked it under the bus. I thought, this is very strange. I mean, after collecting them all, what's going on? Anyhow, she just stood nearby, and then the bus, it was time for it to go. It took off and it ran over the bag with the cans and flattened them all. So it saved her the trouble of squashing all of the cans. Well, it made me realise, as it were, here was somebody who I think I rightly can assume had not had a long education or anything of that sort, who was making a living in a very basic way, but really intelligent, smarter than I was. That's the great thing about Hong Kong, really, is you can walk outside any time of day and you can learn from other people. There's just so much going on. I spend a lot of time reading and writing and so on. But I've settled down in Hong Kong. My wife is Hong Kong Chinese, and she's got quite a large extended family. And although we don't have any children of our own, there are quite a lot of grandchildren in the family. So there's a lot of family life, and thinking I'm a little bit old now for more adventurous pursuits when we're not suffering from COVID and so on. I enjoy swimming and walking. And actually, one of the things I must say, I'm a bit of a bus uncle. I love the buses in Hong Kong, and I'm old enough now, so it only costs me $2 to go anywhere. It's fantastic. So we often just go out, and we live down in the Southern District, and there are many buses going all over Hong Kong you can catch. So if we want to go out somewhere, we'll just go and wait. Sometimes we'll just take the next sort of long distance bus that comes by and get on that, and then we'll go to Saint Pun or Sha Tin or wherever and spend time around. Usually end up in a Cha Chan Teng, and if I'd been good, my wife will let me have some say dozy. I'm part-time and I teach in a program called the Master of Common Law. And for the last 10 years, I suppose, virtually all of my students have been mainland Chinese. It was started up by Hong Kong University, I think almost 20 years ago, maybe longer, but it was started up to help initially educate judges from the mainland, especially from Shenzhen and Guangzhou. We still have a lot of judges come, but a lot of practicing lawyers come to study common law, an overview of the common law, and we have a number of civil servants from the mainland. So quite a wide range of people come. I can say confidently, I mean, even 10 years ago, the language abilities were good. They are very good now. I just made some comments recently about a debate that took place in the UK, where a commentator in the UK, a very intelligent person, but nevertheless making comments about Hong Kong from London, not living here. And this woman was worried about the brain drain, she said, because of all of we had the insurrection in 2019, and now we've got quite drastic law reform to help stabilise Hong Kong, that we were losing people. And so my comment was that, in fact, the brain flow from the mainland, frankly, just keeps getting stronger and stronger. Hong Kong itself is, I guess, because it just keeps changing in a steady way before your eyes, the changing examples are not quite so obvious as they are compared to the mainland. One of the things that's most evident is certainly there are many more mainland Chinese here now than when I first came in 1990. That was not common. And the colonial feeling, I mean, many things still retain their names, like the Queen Mary Hospital and so on, but there is definitely a feeling of change that has come with the end of the British era and the beginning of the HKSAR. That's hard to sum up just in a few words. What's happening in Hong Kong, always things are changing. It's a place where change is normal, perhaps more so than any other places. I think it was in 1992 I made my first visit across the border to Shenzhen with a friend. And you could get a visa in those days just at the border, which I did. And it was to go and visit the first theme park which had been established. It was called Splendid China, and I think it's still going. So in 1992, to get there, we got in a pretty ancient minibus in Lawu, and then the bus to Splendid China took about 50 minutes, and most of the road was a dirt road, muddy, rutted. I wondered whether we were going to get there, but we did. It was okay. The weather was not too bad. That stayed in my mind as well, and clearly changes just then are astonishing, really, in the mainland. But going back less than 20 years later, the MTR in Guangzhou was about 600 kilometres long, or 400 kilometres long, with tens and tens of stations. Very, very dramatic changes. Even when I'd only been here for a year or so, it felt very comfortable. I really liked being here. I guess the thing that I appreciated greatly was the efficiency and the safety. To sum people up really quite quickly. I think that comes from this high understanding. I have a good friend in Toronto, Harry Glasby, his name is, and his wife, lovely wife, Sandra. So he was the professor who ran the graduate program when I went to do my doctorate. And we've kept in touch ever since. He came to visit Hong Kong for the first time about 10 years ago. I was the host to both he and his wife, and they enjoyed it very, very much. When they were leaving Hong Kong, we went to the Kowloon high-speed rail station and then go to the airport. So they'd done all of the check-in, and Harry turned to me and he said, "Richard," he's quite an exuberant guy, he said, "Richard, this is a fabulous city." And he was right. It still is a fabulous city.